Hey everybody, it's Marlon. Welcome to the channel, Marlon's 420. Hope y'all are having a great, what is this, Tuesday night? Uh, Last time we did a Warhammer episode. I was talking about the power of insanity and Conrad Kurz being the bad, dangerous motherfucker that he is. Um, and I said that if I had to pick any one Primarch that I really would not want to have to get down with or engage, especially in say Legion to Legion combat with, it'd be them. The Night Lords and Conrad Kurz. They are some dangerous, nasty, bad motherfuckers. So, anyways, this time, if you notice, also a lot of these videos I've been doing have been picking up points where I've thought one thing based on what I knew and the community had said and taught me before I started reading the Horus Heresy series myself. But since I've actually read them myself now or listened to the audiobooks, I don't have I feel like a lot of the things that I thought were true, like a lot of people have just said Alfarius is a traitor, end of. And the Alpha Legion were traitors, end of. And Omegon may not be, so we don't really know on that side. I don't think Alfarius or the Alpha Legion, through his leadership as a whole, was a traitor. I don't. Go and look at his actions leading up to that fight with Dorn, and then the things he said while they were fighting. And then, you know, you have the most powerful Primarchs, the biggest legions and all that. But with Conrad, everybody's always said that he's just crazy. But his visions don't really seem that crazy when you start to examine them like we did in that video. So now we've got to the point where I wanted to pick up Fulgrim versus Ferrus on Istvaan 5 because that's always been let's say a fight, a duel that I thought, that Ferrus was winning pretty easily, pretty handily, the way a lot of people make it seem. And then that Fulgrim himself, while influenced by the Lair Blade, was, he made the kill. And that's actually not what happened at all. I will die on this hill. Fulgrim did not want to kill Ferrus. He tried, he did his best. Inwardly, whatever you want to call it, he did not want to complete that swing. He tried to stop it, and he was just not strong enough to do it. But Fulgrim absolutely did not want to kill Ferrus in that moment. Now, everything leading up to that, you have the Iron Hands and the Emperor's Children, and the animosity between the two during the fighting on Istvaan 5 is absolutely murderously brutal. And I think that's just because Ferrus and Fulgrim had already come into contact before. When Fulgrim went to Ferrus to try and convince him to turn traitor, and Ferrus tried to kill Fulgrim actually then and there on Ferrus's ship, and Fulgrim was able to get out of that situation. But on Istvaan 5, it is bloodily brutal between both legions. And then the fight between Ferrus and Fulgrim is extremely even for most of this back and forth. It's not until we get close to the very end where, actually, I don't think, even at the end, they're both pretty banged up and injured. I mean, they're both even on the ground at one point. And that's sort of where I'm gonna read some of this so that y'all can understand where I'm coming from and what I'm saying about, the books giving me a different view of what happened than what a lot of the community seems to, on reviews and explanations and things like that. So they have been just absolutely wailing on each other, and I'm gonna pick it up about that's about 2/3 of the way through their duel probably. The Primarch of the Iron Hands took the blow, dropping to one knee and lashing out with his blade as blood streamed from the terrible wound in his temple. The sword's fiery tip cut across Fulgrim's stomach, opening his armor and tearing through his flesh. The pain was indescribable, and Fulgrim fell back, dropping his hammer as his hands sought to stem the blood pouring from his body. Now, yeah, Fulgrim is using the hammer that Ferrus constructed, or no, Fulgrim constructed the hammer for Ferrus, and Ferrus constructed the sword for Fulgrim. And when they first had that fight, when Fulgrim went to try and get Ferrus to turn traitor, they basically swapped weapons back. So both Primarchs faced each other on their knees through a haze of pain and blood, and Fulgrim once again felt an ache of sadness well within him. The pain of his wounds and the sight of his brother's broken skull coated in blood tore a window into his mind. It's not all him. The sensation was like a powerful gust of fresh mountain air, clearing away the fog that had wrapped him in a suffocating embrace for so long that he no longer noticed it until it was gone. "My brother," he whispered, "my friend." "You have long since lost the right to call me friend," snarled Ferrus, pushing himself to his feet and staggering towards Fulgrim with Fireblade raised to smite him. Fulgrim cried out, and his hand leapt, unbidden. He didn't do it, to his waist as the flaming blade carved a burning path towards his neck. Silver steel flashed as he drew the sword he had taken from the lair temple and blocked the descending weapon. That's the moment, like, the lair blade is giving him strength and moving him in ways that he shouldn't have. Ferrus thought that that would be it. He's opened himself up here with the killing strike that Fulgrim shouldn't have been able to match the lair temple and blocked the descending weapon. Ferrus's sword hissed and spat as it bit into the silver blade, the Primarch of the Iron Hand's strength forcing the blazing metal centimeter by centimeter towards Fulgrim's face. "No," cried Fulgrim, "this is not right." The amethyst stone at the hilt of Fulgrim's sword pulsed with an evil light, bathing Ferrus Manus' face in a leering purple glare. Energy streamed from the blade, and musky smoke billowed around them, deadening sounds and obscuring sight. Fulgrim felt a monstrous presence swell around him, its power and nameless essence more intoxicating and dreadful than anything he could have ever imagined. Diabolical strength flooded his limbs, and he pushed against the power of Ferrus Manus, feeling his brother's surprise at his resistance. With the cry of animal rage, he surged to his feet and hurled Ferrus back, spinning and lashing out with his sword. The silver edge bit deep into the breastplate of his brother's armor, and the Primarch of the Iron Hands cried out, falling to his knees once again as the blade's flaring energies parted his dark armor like a fingernail through cold grease. Hot blood sprayed from the wound, and Fireblade slid from Ferrus's hand as he gasped in a fierce agony. "Finish him! Kill him!" the voice screamed, and to Fulgrim it seemed as though it echoed across time and space, as well as within his skull. He staggered with the blunt force of its imperative, lurching as though his limbs were not his to control. His normal grace and elan were forsaken as he falteringly raised the silver sword in preparation of delivering the death blow to Ferrus Manus. Unknown energies coruscated along the notched blade and down the length of his arm into the meat and bone of his wounded body. Fulgrim wreathed in purple fire. Crackling arcs of lightning caressed him with a lover's tenderness, seeking to open his wounds and licking them with balefire as they sought entry to his flesh. Fulgrim stood above Ferrus Manus, his chest heaving convulsively as his entire body shook with the violence of the power that sought to claim him. He must die, otherwise he will kill you. Fulgrim looked down at his defeated opponent and saw his own reflection in the mirror of Ferrus's eyes. In an instant that stretched out for an eternity, he saw what he had become and what monstrous betrayal he had allowed himself to be party to. He knew in that eternal moment that he had made a terrible mistake. In drawing the sword from the lair temple, and he fought to release the damnable blade that had brought him so low. His grip was locked onto the weapon, and even as he recognized how far he had fallen, he knew that he had come too far to stop. The realization, coupled with the knowledge that everything he had striven for had been a lie. As though moving in slow motion, Fulgrim saw Ferrus Manus reaching for his fallen sword, his fingers closing around the wire-wound grip, the flames leaping once more to the blade at its creator's touch. Kill him before he kills you, now! Fulgrim's blade seemed to move with a life of its own, but it had no need of such impellence, for he swung the blade of his own volition. The silver blade clove the air as it swept toward Ferrus Manus, and Fulgrim felt the ancient triumph of the presence that he now knew had dwelt within it all this time. He tried desperately to pull the blow, but his muscles were no longer to his own control. Unnatural, warp-forged steel met the iron flesh of a Primarch, its abhorrent edge cutting through Ferrus's skin, muscle, and bone, with a shrieking howl that echoed in realms beyond those knowable to mortals. Blood and the monumental energies bound within the meat and gristle of one of the Emperor's sons erupted from the wound, and Fulgrim fell back as the searing powers blinded him, dropping the silver sword at his side. He heard a shrieking wail as a choir of banshees whipped around him as phantom skeletal hands clawed at him, and 1,000 voices tore at his mind. Ghostly whirlwinds seized him and spun him around, twisting him like a limp rag in their grip, and threatening to tear him limb from limb in retribution. Even as he welcomed such oblivion, he felt another presence move to protect him. The same presence that had guided his sword arm, the same presence that had been his constant companion since Laren, though he had not known it. Fulgrim fell to the ground as the winds released him and faded with the shrieking howl of anguished frustration. He landed heavily and rolled onto his side, heaving great gulps of cold air into his lungs. He heard cries of pain, gunfire, explosions, and the rhythmic crack of bolters as they fired relentlessly, volley after volley. It was the sound of death and massacre. His entire body aching with pain and loss, Fulgrim pushed himself upright. Blood and the detritus of battle surrounded him, the stoic figures of armored warriors staring in wonder at the headless body that lay on the black ground. Fulgrim took a shuddering breath and raised his hands to the heavens, screaming his loss at the sight of his brother, so cruelly murdered. Now, that is super sad, obviously. I mean, so sad. And yes, I do know it does say, it didn't need to coerce him. He swung the sword himself to start with. Yeah, he did start the swing himself. But that was after a huge dose of manipulation from the demon, lair blade, whatever you want to call it. And then again, he tried to pull it and stop it. He couldn't. We'll obviously never know what was going on in his actual mind, but considering his reaction afterwards, he's sitting there literally just screaming into the void. And for a lot of this, like as he's still in control of his own mind and body, he's basically given up on the battle as it goes on around him. And it's not until then, of course, he surrenders his body and mind and everything to the demon, but not just to surrender it. He did so with the demon in him. He thought that the demon was going to kill him. That's why he made the deal. He thought the demon was going to kill him, end his pain, so to speak, as they said. But he didn't. He just took his consciousness and forced Fulgrim to the back, which was a bad move by the demon, because we know you're not going to hold a Primarch like that, right? And I will do a video on how the Emperor's Children, with Lucius and all them, as Major Kill has talked about before, tortured the shit out of Fulgrim, thinking that he was still possessed, and he wasn't. But I mean, it's really sick. It's funny and it's interesting, but it is fucked up. Anyways, that's what I think. I don't think that Fulgrim wanted this to happen. I don't think he actually wanted to kill Ferrus. I think he loved Ferrus. I think it's obvious that he did. I mean, he's still even having issues with Ferrus memories, Ferrus nightmares, trying to kill Ferrus again in practice cages many years down the road. He never gets over this, even from what I've heard and listened to in reviews and stories from way down the road, 10,000 years from now. Still has not gotten over killing his brother. And he called it a cruel murder, and it was. So I think that this is the thing that finally corrupted and absolutely did end Fulgrim. I think up until this moment right here, he was redeemable. He could have been brought back. And this moment crushed that. And that's when we get the next time we really see Fulgrim is in the Angel Exterminatus. And he is gone full blown off the deep end, to the point where he tries to kill Perturabo just to take his Primarch sauce and make it his for his elevation to demonhood. So, anyways, I hope y'all enjoy. Let me know what you think about this encounter. Let me know if you agree with me or not. Get up there and hit that subscribe button so you'll be getting everything that I send out this week. I'll be doing another video, hopefully, I don't know when, next day or so. And we'll be introducing Weed and Warhammer Wednesdays this week, which I hope y'all enjoy and partake in with me. And other than that, so get up there, hit that sub button, get down in the comments, let me know what you think. And let me know if you'd like what you'd like to talk about, if there's anything I can go over from the Horus Heresy series, since I'm just now finishing it and getting into the Siege of Terra. So let me know. And be sure and hit that like button, and we'll get with y'all very soon. Marlon out.